Hello. Before we start today's episode, if you would like a condensed version of what I'm talking about in this podcast, go ahead and subscribe to the Perfectionist Guide. You can read the entire thing in 3 minutes or less. To access this, go to CourtneyLoveGavin.com/newsletter. Are you a bit of a perfectionist? Type A, hyper performer? Then you know
what it is like when your perfectionism is a constant god-awful companion.
But it doesn't have to be. If you are ready to burn bright instead of burning out, to lead without losing yourself, and to enjoy the life you have worked so hard to create, then keep listening. I'm your host, America's leader on rewiring perfectionism, CLG, and this is Perfectionism Rewired, the podcast. Welcome to Perfectionism Rewired. Today, we are talking about when taking a few deep breaths is not enough. You are going to learn why this is, what actually does work that is more than good enough. When you are struggling with perfectionism, it's not because there's something wrong with you. It's because you don't have the support that you need. Support doesn't add up like our linear brains like to think. It's not a math equation. Support compounds. Please don't make the mistake that I did, where you resist connecting to support because you feel that you should have a handle on these perfectionistic tendencies by now. Human beings need support throughout their entire lives. You're a human being, which means that you require support. Sourcing yourself with support when you're doing very well is actually what enables you to sustain your progress. Don't be like vintage CLG, where you play the passive wait and see strategy out until the dysfunction in your life culminates into a crisis. And then you have to bury yourself with the urgency of triage. Because after that crisis in your life is cleaned up, you still got to develop a better strategy. I have been getting a lot of questions around fitting in rewiring perfectionism, like Gary, who reached out and said, I have all these deadlines for work, I'm traveling with the kids, and I feel like I just don't have the time right now. So if you are like Gary, you have deadlines for work, you're traveling with the kids, and you feel like, oh, the holidays, CLG, I just don't have the time right now. These are my questions for you of how you can discern whether or not you have enough time. Question number 1, are you already showering in your life? 2, are you already chewing food? 3, do you ever go outside? 4, do you drink water? If you answered yes to 2 out of those 4 questions, you totally have time to rewire your perfectionism, because the beauty of what I've designed is that it fits into your already dynamic schedule. And just imagine what the end of the year and the holidays could be like for you if your storyline was, this is so fun. None of my perfectionistic tendencies are stopping me. Even if you don't want to kick off until 2024, I will gift you 3 spectacular perfectionist playbooks that you can work on in the meantime. Here's how these playbooks can come in handy. I had a client over Thanksgiving. She was at her in-laws and she is working on rewiring her people pleasing. And she said that she was able to tell her mother-in-law, oh, hey, I would love to do that, but I actually need to finish this playbook. And she was like, and I did that and I didn't feel guilty. That's just one of the many creative ways that you can start helping yourself now. So if you want to quit fighting against yourself forever so that you can actually be present and experience more joy in this holiday and all year long, hit the link in the show notes or go to CourtneyLoveGavin.com/optimized. As a perfectionist, little things like having too much free time, deciding on the color palette to use for your website, or forgetting to put one word in a 30-slide presentation can cause us so much anxiety, especially when you compulsively feel this need to get everything right the first time and when you're always seeing how things could be better. It sucks when you tell someone everything isn't wonderful and then they say back to you, it just doesn't matter. Or when they say, just let it go, lighten up. It's not that big of a deal. You're already doing so good in life. Stop complaining. You're wonderful already. Like, just stop. Just stop. You're making a problem out of nothing. That shouldn't bother you so much. My client Emily said before we started working together, it's as if I have no one to turn to because everyone looks at me as doing good in life. I just wish someone would listen to me and not make this seem like a small, irrelevant type thing. What Emily's saying is what so many of us perfectionists experience because it feels like it's a big deal. And we know that it doesn't make sense. That's partially what drives us bonkers. You end up feeling even worse when you actually share with someone what's happening. And then when your experience is belittled, invalidated, or dismissed, we're already stressed about getting something wrong. In general, we don't want to get anything wrong. We want to do everything right. And then we're being told how we feel about it is the wrong way to feel, and that we should be enjoying our experience, that there's absolutely no reason why we should be wanting to crawl out of our own skin. Your inner experience is always correct and valid. This is paramount, okay? Your inner experience is always correct and valid. The deep levels of disappointment, panic, and frustration, that misery meter gets turned up because of how drastically misunderstood we are as perfectionists. We way too often get mislabeled as exhausting, controlling, uptight, no fun, or difficult. It's especially hard when that comes from the people that we love the most, like our kids or our partners or our siblings. By the way, that takes courage to recognize that something's not working instead of pretending that it'll work if you just try harder or force it, or that it will somehow magically fix itself if you ignore it or pretend that it doesn't exist. The whipped cream on this poopy pie is when you look for support, what you have to choose from, you're choosing between compliance-driven models of support, where you are judged solely on the observable actions and behaviors. It's about the focus on compliance. It teaches you that you must comply with the rules to earn the reward. The reward, it's doing it right, approval from the practitioner that you're working with. And your inner experience is never explored and it's rarely acknowledged. You are not given the dignity of your own experience. Does this sound familiar? Talk therapy, perfectionism recovery, or conventional coaching, they all focus on treating the symptoms with this assumption that by reducing your symptoms, you will feel better. However, for perfectionists and high achievers, this approach is not effective. An example of my client, Carly. Carly goes to a therapist for anxiety, catastrophizing, and getting help with her perfectionistic tendencies. The therapist teaches her some deep breathing exercises and tells her, do these whenever she feels stressed and it will help her feel better. Carly struggles to coordinate her body and her breath. And when she sits to do these deep breathing exercises, she starts to feel even more flustered and anxious. When she's struggling to leave the house with her 2 young daughters, she can't even figure out how she would use them. Carly also doesn't understand how taking all these deep breaths is going to help her. She leads a team at work, so doing all these deep breathing exercises each day just feels like one more thing to do. Carly gets frustrated because she's doing all the things that her therapist is telling her to do during her already scheduled within an inch of her life hectic day, and she's not seeing any changes. The worst part is that she feels like maybe that voice inside that's saying something must be seriously wrong with you, that voice is right. Eventually, Carly stops going to therapy. In this example, the therapist has taken a compliance-driven, surface-level symptom approach to perfectionism, which is leaving Carly feeling frustrated and ultimately super disempowered. She invested the time, the money, and the energy getting help for her perfectionism, and it was a cluster. Now, why did this happen? deep breathing and other tools in these conventional models that focus on compliance are often too abstract. The way that you get a busy mind, like we have with perfectionists, it needs to be simple. It needs to be like my litmus test that I use all the time is I'm like, could a 6-year-old understand this? Okay, great. And if a 6-year-old can't understand it, then it's my job as the clinician to be able to distill it down. Second reason why this happened, I don't even know if it's why this happened, but more so like why this turned into a cluster for Carly. And by the way, thank you, Carly, for giving me your consent to share it, is that it requires a certain level of cognition and attention. The deep breathing exercise prescribed to Carly is not a match for her lifestyle right now. It's super important you are upfront and candid about what your bandwidth is right now, which a lot of times as perfectionists, we're not necessarily that good at advocating for ourselves. We're really good at advocating for everyone else. But when it comes to ourselves, it's like, I don't know how to do this. These support models that focus on coercive control and compliance are also hierarchical models where they put the practitioner above the perfectionist. And because of that, the perfectionist, if they're not asked by the practitioner, how much time do you have? And working within that, a lot of times the perfectionist doesn't say anything. And then it's like they're in school again and they're just like staying up all night or they're like haphazardly doing it. Or maybe you don't want to admit to the practitioner that you didn't actually do it. Any practitioner that is skilled can make it work for you. If you're like, I have 5 minutes a day, they will make those the most, because it's not about the amount of time, it's about the efficacy of the thing that you're doing. If the person that you're working with doesn't have that kind of expertise, or they're just giving you, well, this is what worked for me, so we're going to copy paste this onto you, run away, because what's going to happen is you're going to end up contorting and shoehorning yourself to fit someone else's mold, which is a temporary fix, but it's not sustainable. It's just like wearing shoes that are way too small for you. It hurts. Your foot gets bent, you get bunions and like all this gross stuff. Any good practitioner that works with perfectionists needs to be able to tailor what they do to you and your lifestyle. Okay. And then number 3 reason why this was a cluster for Carly is that the therapist assumed there's a safe relationship with internal sensations. Just because deep breathing is relaxing on paper, that does not translate to mean that it will be relaxing for you. Like, especially if you can't stand being alone, you hate meditating because of the voice inside, deep breathing can actually cause more harm than help. You could do years of therapy and be taught hundreds and hundreds of coping strategies. But until you get to your sources and what's happening beneath the surface, it will feel like you're playing a game of whack-a-mole blindfolded after you've been spun around 50 times. And you won't know which tool is the best match for what you're experiencing or when to use it. This is why, like for Carly, it felt like sometimes the deep breathing helps, but other times it makes it worse. As perfectionists, you gotta know what's happening below the surface in order to solve for it. Your perfectionism, it's like the Golden Gate Bridge. The parts that you can see, your surface level symptoms of perfectionism, like catastrophizing, over-indexing on mistakes, beating yourself up, being super rigid, planning every vacation down to the millisecond, and procrastinating, etc. Underneath the Golden Gate Bridge in the Pacific Ocean are the hidden dynamics that shape and influence your life and perfectionism. The strength of any bridge is determined by the depth and the breadth of its foundation. And what makes it sturdy and stand tall is all of these hidden components. I modeled this out for you. There is a link in the show notes. And in the next episode, we are going to get into all of them along with how they can be categorized. Truth Booth right here for all of my fellow perfectionists that a dream night in is hours spent researching. What I just said about you got to know what's happening in order to solve for it, that does not mean for you to continue with researching and self-diagnosing. I want you to imagine you're walking around and that the struggles that you're having, it's like you fell into a hole. Okay, you're walking around outside and you fell into a hole. And in your satchel, you have one tool, a hand shovel, and it's not really working. You notice that you're just getting deeper in the hole. So then you just start digging deeper and faster and working harder. That's you right now when it comes to self-diagnosing, researching, and doing this on your own. The first rule and only rule of holes is when you're in a hole, stop digging. So if deep breathing is not enough, what is? Study after study shows understanding the underlying factors, or as I like to call them, the areas of influence that contribute to perfectionism, and then learning the strategies that address your unique zones has lasting results, like permanently forever. And I see this on a daily basis with my clients. They become more present, confident, and playful. And it is so meaningful to help fellow perfectionists discover and understand how to navigate their unique signals and systems. There's nothing that I love more in the world than doing this. When it comes to the support that you are receiving, connecting the why behind the strategies makes them meaningful and easier to implement in your day-to-day. Just look at brushing your teeth and flossing. We know why. We don't want all of our teeth to fall out and to wear grills. We know that brushing our teeth helps us keep our teeth. And because we know the meaning behind it, it's way easier to implement into your day-to-day. Knowing the why aligns with the way perfectionist brains naturally work and are wired. Like as perfectionists, we want to understand the variables and the context, and we delight in the details. All skills, techniques, tools need to be linked to why in order to be effective for perfectionists. Now, I'm going to show you the other side of the coin, an inside out versus an outside in approach, what this actually looks like. Carly goes to CLG, a perfectionist affirming coach, where she discovers she struggles with staying present because of a disconnect in her interoceptive awareness, which contributes to her catastrophizing, feeling overwhelmed and anxious all day, every day. Carly also learns that her anxiety about getting things wrong is made worse by her mistake sensitivity and overactive amygdala. She learns that she's trained her reticular activating system to look for danger, and most of the day is operating outside of her window of tolerance, which is why her body is always stressed. Carly gains skills she can easily incorporate into even her most hectic days. She curates an apothecary of neurosculpting tools that work with what she's already doing, like washing her hands and drinking coffee, because she understands how her neurosculpting tools work. She trusts them. Carly has a system to track her progress, and her coach constantly points out all of the tiny and mighty ways that she's changing. So when that voice inside of her is saying, "Why are you doing this? It's pointless," she is put right back on track. Carly experiences a greater ease, resilience, and her expanded presence is contagious. Her daughters are having fewer meltdowns and getting sick not as often. This is due to how human bodies secretly communicate with each other, which is one of the many skills Carly has learned and implemented during her one-on-one coaching. All of the skills are introduced with the why it works, and tweak to how to best work for Carly, which increases a sense of agency instead of feeling frustrated because she's doing everything that she's told. The thing that I mentioned about Carly's presence and the ripple effect with her children, the way that human bodies secretly communicate with each other is called co-regulation. It's another reason working with an esteemed professional is really important because as humans, our internal systems take cues from the people around us to decide how anxious or calm to be. Us perfectionists and us as humans, we have depended on co-regulation since we were babies. You know, when you're a baby, you're being held. It's like hearing soothing voices. All of those interactions restore a sense of safety. As adult perfectionists, that need doesn't change. As a clinician and perfectionism coach, I intentionally use my internal system to help my clients calm theirs. How I interact is to help perfectionists feel safe at an unconscious level. This episode is the first in a supreme series all about getting beneath the sucky symptoms and shiny parts of perfectionism. In the next episode, you are going to get a front row seat as I walk you through this framework that I previously only shared with private one-on-one clients inside of Perfectionism Optimized, my one-on-one coaching for perfectionists. I shared it with my client Jenny this week, who said, all of this time I've been looking to make sense of what's going on with me, and now it all makes sense. She said, whoa, this is the most freeing, confirming, and validating. And now you are going to be able to make sense of all of the nonsense in your life. One last thing, when you're out granting wishes this holiday season, remember to grant your own. If quitting fighting against your perfectionism forever and being so comfortable and calm in your own skin that it feels like coming home is on your wish list, then head to CourtneyLoveGavin.com/optimized now.